In this video, we'll be going over the 5 reasons not to use big banks when buying a home. My name is William Singh. I'm a local real estate agent in the Portland, Oregon area, and let's dive into this content. So, one thing to note is that not all big banks are horrible, and they are usually just places where they do a high volume, and I realize that this does not apply to all banks, but when you do deal with bigger banks, this is a common issue or common issues that come up during the transaction. So, let's dive into number 1 for why you don't use big banks. Number 1 is the unresponsiveness. So one of the things to realize that if you are working with a bigger bank is that they typically work 9 to 5. And if this is one of those situations where we're out house hunting and I need to get a pre-approval letter from them on Saturday to make sure that we can submit an offer, or maybe get that pre-approval letter much faster in order to make sure that we take it off the market before it even hits the weekend, is that if we can't get that soon enough, then we might lose out on that deal. So realize that one of the things that they are sometimes not the greatest at is communication. This is also really helpful and, or frankly needed in a transaction, is to be able to communicate and be very responsive because of the fact of how fast-paced this industry is. So reason number 2 not to use big banks is that they have a tendency not to close on the close date. This means that there's cash out of your pocket usually, and you could have a cost of about $100 per day for every day you don't close or after that specific close date. This is one of those things that can start adding up, especially if it takes your bank 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get everything done. And this also means that you are losing more and more money, and that rate can even be higher. I've seen it anywhere between $200 to $300 a day. One other potential issue is if you don't close it on time is that you might have to extend your rate lock. This is something where you will have to pay additional money, maybe up to even $5,000, to make sure that you lock in the rate that you need in order to buy the home. This is not good. So this is another big reason why not to use big banks. Reason number 3 is because you could lose your earnest money if you don't close on the right date. So in reason number 2, you might just be having an ongoing fee, but when it comes to you not closing on time, that means they can take your earnest money as part of the contract. This is typically the situation. So with that in mind, you just put in all this effort, you got everything to the finish line, and then your bank didn't get it done. And that means that you could have lost 1%, 1 to 2% of the purchase price of that, and then you have to start all over. This is not a great place for my buyers, and this is one of the reasons why I strongly suggest making sure that you use a local lender. Reason number 4 is misleading incentives. So one of the things that happens is that they will incentivize you to use them when they say we will pay up to $7,500 for all of your closing costs. And this might be something where that's a huge chunk, right? But they might just cover the non-reoccurring fees, which would only really amount to about $2,000. So with that in mind, just realize you need to look at the fine print whenever you're really looking at these promotions or incentives. Reason number 5 not to use a big bank. One of the things that they commonly do is they have poor customer service, or they are not great at problem solving. One of the biggest issues in transactions is typically the financing, and if you don't have a lender that is able to be responsive and able to understand the situations and frankly have those conversations with you, it will make the transaction that much harder. When you are talking to someone about one of the biggest purchases you'll do, you want to make sure that they are there for you. And one of the reasons why I prefer local lenders, even though they maybe cost a little bit more in terms of the rate, they have phenomenal customer service and are able to walk you through and answer any of the questions that you have about the banking or financing side of the transaction. These are the 5 big reasons not to use a big bank. If you have any other questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And if you are looking for a lender or want to talk to a lender and just have a conversation with them to see whether or not they'd be a right fit for you, I have a couple phenomenal lenders I can recommend to you. Feel free to reach out via phone, text, email, whatever works best for you. My details will be somewhere here. If you find any of this content helpful, I would greatly appreciate it if you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell whenever new videos pop up.